Yeah, so we're gonna talk with Audrey today about her life experiences and her story. And yeah, let's start, Audrey. Can you introduce yourself
Sure.
and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like before I do that though, like everyone joining us, thank you for joining. And also like if you are in a convenient space, like feel free to turn on the camera because I kind of want this session to be as interactive as possible. Like feel free to jump in if you have any questions right there and right now also. Yeah, and I also don't know where you're joining from and what time it is in your time zone. So I don't know if we have time, but in my mind though, like I kind of want to know everyone as well because the learning experience is both ways. So yeah.
Uh, Great. Yeah. But I think like it would be great if you can start and then we can like add everyone to the conversation.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
introduce
Yeah,
it.
I would do that, of course. So hello everyone, I'm Audrey. I'm originally from Taiwan, but now I'm based in Boston. I just finished my MBA program at Northeastern, and during my MBA, I got to intern in Hasbro. I actually just ended last week, and I was a project engineer at Hasbro at the Transformers team, like the movie Transformers. It's a toy brand.
Yeah.
And yeah, so my stay at Hasbro really taught me about what's working in a multinational 500 Fortune 500 company in the US is like. Also, like learning the work culture here in the US, and also we have partners in Japan and Hong Kong that we work very closely on a daily basis with. Before my MBA program, I was a project manager and also project engineer in the retail and also manufacturing industry in China and Taiwan. So when I was in China, I got to work for a startup in China. We're a gelato, like the ice cream gelato franchise startup in China. It was a very competitive space. Everyone's trying to be creative, but also stay down to earth on their financials. What I was helping is installing an information management system that connects from logistics all the way to customer relationship service, like the very integrated platform that allow us to run all of our business data and startup data in the platform, so to support our system and to support our franchisees as well. And after that, I went back home to Taiwan to work at as also a project manager for a manufacturing company. It's actually a traditional manufacturing company that produces plastic buckets. But what I was doing is trying to help them assess their current factories, I guess, quality and like improving the quality, but also introducing some of the new technologies such as IoT, Industrial 4.0, and see if automation could be more utilized in their company. Yeah, that pretty much sums up my background. But as where I'm standing here now, because I met Sajad in the MBA program, we're classmates, and we really like learned a lot from each other. We went to some basic core courses together, but also some electives, and we got to connect through this experience and with all of our classmates in the MBA in Boston as well. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey. So I'm gonna start with I think the main question here. What brought you to the US? Like what made you pursue your MBAs and like higher education in the US?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. It's also one of the big risks that I've taken in my life. So I was working in the manufacturing company as a project manager in Taiwan, right? But well, imagine Taiwan, it's an island of country, it's a small country as well. There isn't that much of a big corporation in Taiwan where all of the structure is well built up for you to climb the corporate ladder and for you to reach that scale when you can look at the multinational, what it's like to be a leader of an international company. And that's what I was aiming for in my career path. So I feel like I have to jump higher or like have a pivotal moment for me to have that stepping stone to jump to where I am. So as usual, my sister is actually one of my biggest mentor. She went to the US to pursue her MBA as well. A lot of my teachers, a lot of my colleagues that I was connecting with, they were sharing about their experience of studying abroad, and a lot of them stayed abroad and all of their experience feedbacks was that it really opens your mind and opened your eyes in terms of comparing lives of living differently in Taiwan versus in the US, right? You get to see so many diversity, so many different industries, so many different scales of leadership and scales of companies and corporations. And that's why I wanted to come to the US.
Okay.
So that's what started it.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, you wanted to like experience the multinational companies, like you wanted to like embrace like these new environments and everything. Wouldn't it have been easier if you just stayed there like with your family, friends, and like work, just like very normal, like I want to know that like the base reason why you moved like halfway across the board to just like experience new things, learn new skills. Why?
It would be so much easier, first of all, if I stay in Taiwan. It's for me, for a lot of media, they're saying that Taiwan is like a really good country to live in and to retire in. It would be so much comfortable and so much, I really like, that's my comfort zone. I know every street, to the detail. I know where I can go and enjoy. I know where I can go learn. I know the industry. I know people that could get me to like a higher position as well. But it is lacking what I would call like a thrilling moment or a challenge to myself, because I do not know if I'm, for example, put to an entire different environment, how my behavior is going to be like and what change that would bring me. And also at the same time, I was like, all my learnings that I introduced on my own are from Europe or like from America. For example, like the books or like the autobiographies that I'm reading from are all these CEOs or like leaders from abroad, from the US. So I really wanted to see for myself if I have that in me, and if not, I can always go back, right? So that's the challenge I feel like I could only take when I was young as well, and that's why I decided that in my 20s I have to do that at least once to like challenge myself, put myself out there, and if it doesn't go well, I have the safety net to go back to Taiwan. And that's why I started in the first place. And I have to say I did not regret it.
That's nice to hear. So you mentioned you like did all of this stuff like in your 20s. Why didn't you just like stay a little longer in your country and just like, I don't know, like try all these new experiences in your 30s or 40s?
Well, I have to say though, even though it's like a systematic constraint towards all of the talents in the world, you are allowed to fail when you're younger. Not so much if you're older, right? When you're 30s, maybe you have a family, maybe you have a partner you have to care for, maybe you have a house or like a mortgage or a car that you have to be able to afford. Well, I would rather fail when I was younger, when I don't have that much baggage and responsibility, to be honest, to try that and see when I fall, well, I pick myself up and only myself up. When I fall in my 30s or 40s, it's not going to be as simple. I would need more support to like hold me back up again to stand on my feet again. So I feel like time is really the crucial element here.
Okay, makes sense. So let's like go back a little. So you moved to the US to pursue your higher education. It was like total like new environments, new people, new culture, new everything. How did you cope with these all new experiences? Like what were the challenges and how did you adjust yourself,
Yeah, I would say that's a really good question. I would say I started preparing right when I have memories. Like right when I was like in elementary school, I studied English, right? That's a preparation. The media that we consume in Taiwan and also in school, a lot of them are from America. I think that helped. Also like the music I listened to, the movie, the TV series I listened to, a lot of people who came to America and was willing to stay and was able to stay and did it just well are the people who are really exposed to the culture before they arrive, right? So they would, of course, there are more you have to adjust to, but you at least have a sense of what it is like, a basic, maybe like a 20% sense of what it's like. And when you get here, your mindset would have to be there's got to be more that I don't know, right? And then you kind of observe, you adjust, you also adjust while you try to contain who you are, so you don't get carried away by the culture and get lost of like a sense of who you are and in your roots and your groundings, right? So it's like maneuvering in between those two aspects of, this is a new environment, what I want to absorb, as a sense of like what you're exposed to in the experience, but also like adjust and stick to who you are and not lose yourself. Because I feel like adjusting to something is actually relatively easy, because you just have to, go with the crowds, know about the culture, and try to like get along with the culture. But the more you do that and the longer people stay abroad, the more confused sometimes they will be at the night. They're trying to think about, okay, but this was my value, what made me change, and what I want to stick with, so I can be like this new me that I really like, and a better version of me that I really aim to get to.
Okay, thank you for explaining the whole thing. So you mentioned like you were kind of like raised with like the America's culture, right? Like you were watching like, I don't know, like American movies, listening to like English songs, and you started learning English from elementary school. So let's say like someone like hasn't been like that, like they didn't start learning English, they haven't like watched many like movies, or like they haven't embraced the culture, like they stayed in the like home country's culture like until they are like 20s or something, in their 20s. So how would you say like they can like, and they want to like experience this whole new thing, like they want to like move not necessarily to the US, but they want to like move abroad, and they want to like learn new skills, like adjust to a new life. How can they do that? Like what would you think would be like a great resource, or what would you think would be like a great way to do that?
I personally is a very strong believer of, if you want, you can. Where you go is where you lead yourself to. So I think the critical point is, as soon as you get exposure from what attracts you, like for example, as soon as you get exposure from America or like the culture here, then you are aware of this. And then if you really want it, you kind of maneuver your direction towards leaning towards making that happen, if you really want it. And you have to want it really, really bad to be willing enough to learn the language, to search up the information, to find the resource, to find your support network, to like execute all of the following steps that we all know would be there if you want to really go abroad, right? So I feel like that critical moment, first of all, you have to allow that critical moment of exposure and your awareness to happen. And then secondly, you have to be very diligent into paving your way towards making that happen. And in my opinion, that's the only two things, right? Whenever you start, if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen for sure. Like we are capable of doing a lot of things that we didn't know yet, and just make it happen. Of course, maneuver the risk, but pave your way step by step towards that goal. And also it's all about time. Like you can search it up, the average time it will take for people to learn a new language. It's actually not that long. Maybe within 2 years of practicing English, you'd be able to really live a good life, a convenient life in the US. So it's not as hard as you probably would thought it would be. But as long as you're like working towards like that direction, whenever you start, whenever you got the exposure, you can do it within a certain amount of time. And I'm really a strong believer on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. You mentioned allow the moment to happen, right? Adjust yourself like with new skills. So I think that would describe something that we would like to talk in like many community about, like growth mindset rather than like fixed mindset. And I think that's a great point, like to like embrace yourself and you will achieve what you want. I mean, at least like you can try, right? You might not achieve the whole thing, but you can try and you will progress. So that's a really good point. So during the time, like also you mentioned you like studied a little and like worked a little in China. So you have like you experience like you have experiences of living in like two different countries rather than your home country. So what were like, did you have any support system, like people, like network of people who helped you through that time? I mean, I know you mentioned like, for example, your sister, like she studied also in the US, so they were able to like mentor you through like some problems you might have had. But like, what else? Like, how did you expand your support system in a like whole new environment?
Yeah, that's crucial and that's very important. If you remember, during our organizational behavior class in the MBA, there's this one particular class that told us to build our like the board called "Who's on My Board," and that's essentially mapping out your support system, right? And fully utilize it and recognize that they're there. And that's like one of the best courses I've taken in the MBA. But essentially, what my support system looks like is there are 4 segments, and first of all, family, of course, and then friends, and then my mentors, and then strangers. That means going to the more detailed side. For family, of course, it's your more there for your emotional support, right? Whenever you're sad, they love you unconditionally. So they're like for me, I'm really grateful that I'm lucky enough to have a family that really support me and support me in terms of like reaching my goal and stepping out. But also when I know, or like when I took a strong hit, I know if I go back to them, they won't judge me. And my family support system is really for me, for my emotional, to hold myself together whenever I fail, whenever I am happy, like I share with them. That's for emotional support. And then moving on to friends, we I don't know you guys' life stages, but for me, it's more my college friends, my colleagues, my MBA friends, those who are in a pretty similar life stages with me, who are also figuring out their lives as we share similar life stages, right? And so I feel like it's more of a conversational and idea exchange support, where if you have something that you want to pursue but are hesitant, you kind of can get a way of knowing more because your friends are already done that, or they have already, or maybe they are still like thinking through about the idea. And during your conversation, you'd get more exposure of insights or the things that you haven't thought of. So I feel like that's where friend segment is there for me, where it's like your teammates, right? You're fighting the same fight together. And what can we do to be stronger and to maneuver that fight? And for mentors, they're like the predecessors. They have already been there, or they have knowledge and their friends to already see through what different decisions might impact you. So the mentors, including like my previous boss in China, previous boss or colleagues as well, like managers in China and Taiwan, and also here in the US, my boss was wonderful in terms of mentoring me. But for mentor, I would suggest that you have to know how to select good mentors, because good mentors, they support you without threatening your career when you're staying in that company, right? For example, my mentor in Hasbro, she encouraged me to get out there and to explore more opportunities. Even she knows that it would risk maybe me staying there. Same with my mentors in China and Taiwan. Although they like me to stay, or maybe although they don't want to lose anyone who already knows what they're doing in that position, they can still jump out of the frame and say, personally, as a mentor, I would advise you to maybe pursue your MBA, go out, change your job, jump around. Those are the good mentors, where they don't only see what benefits them, but they stand at your viewpoint and see through that decision in your viewpoint for you and advise you in their way. So that mentor is the predecessor, and I would have to say they really know a lot, and they helped me a lot in terms of making career or like big life choices decisions as to like moving to a different city, changing my job, pursuing a higher educational degree that really steer you into a different life path. And the last one is strangers. I have to say, although the support system is there always for me, but I learn from strangers the most. For me, it's like reading books. I like to read autobiographies from leaders, from business people. For example, like Sarah Blakely, she's a founder of Spanx, like a consumer product company. Also like Indra Nooyi, she was the ex-CEO of PepsiCo, and she's from India. We share the same identity as of like being an international student, and then trying to build our career in a different environment, different cultural background. So like I kind of find here and there some connection with all those leaders that I admire, and then I take their words and take their spirits with me to support me. And the more you read, the more you really dig into other people's success stories or failure stories. You can find the connection, and you can pick up what really is like their common value or common path that you would later know, oh, this is what would bring me there if I want to go to their position.
Awesome. I just have like one follow-up question about the mentors. So you mentioned like you need to know like how to select mentors, right? And you mentioned like one attribute of them, like they would go out of their way to just help you and advise you, even though it might not benefit them. But the problem is like, I mean, at least like, I think the question would be like, when you are asking for their advice, you don't know which option would benefit you more, right? So you don't know like whether, so you don't know like whether like they are like trying to like exactly like help you, or they are also like seeking their own benefits. So how can, like, besides these like attributes, how can you identify and how can you know who would be a great mentor to you? And also, how can you reach out to them to ask for their advice? If, like, for example, let's say they are not your direct boss or they are not your like close friend, and how can you like reach out to them to ask for their advice?
That's a really good question. So there are two parts, right? First one is like, who do I know is a good mentor for me? Well, I have to say, you don't have to stick with one, right? For every big decision I'm making, I'm probably making it with a time frame of 2 or 3 months, even like half a year, even 1 year, or right, thinking very far ahead. So I go to all of them, and I go to even those who I don't like, I'm not as close with, if that's a way to speak. Like for my mentors, I keep also leading to the second question, right? You have to build the relationship before you really need them. So you have to maintain it. And one day, if you really need something from them, it's like you're saving money, and then you have the ability to like withdraw, right? If you don't have the relationship, they're ready, and you only go to them when you need some answer or something from them, then it's not a relationship. You have to make the effort to build the relationship and to have the foundation there, so that someday when it comes to needs, you know that you can rely on them because you already have that relationship. I think it's the same with friendship. You're not just using them. It's the both sides street, where mentor also learn from you. Surprisingly, that's all what mentors also say, right? It's a relationship on the both sides. So if you save enough money, if you have enough credit, one day if you really need to discuss something, you wouldn't even be thinking how I should reach out. You just reach out normally because you always stay in touch with them. You always touch base, and same for them too, and same for your friends. So again, it's like your support system is something you have to put effort in building. I wouldn't say every day, because that would be a lot of stress if people have a huge support system, but actually it's a very rational thing for me to do. But I have a calendar just for my mentors and just for my support system to touch base with them. like every 2 months, it'll remind me to maybe stay connected or reach out to my mentor. And it's not like you have to have a meeting with them. It's something like just maybe throw a message, checking in with them. Or if you're connected on LinkedIn, like just, go through what they're, like what the post they're liking, the post they're shared, and just like going through, maybe leave some comments so that you don't lose the connection there. So it's again, like who's on my board, that's something you have to spare some time on a regular basis to maintain, and it would definitely benefit you when the time comes.
Awesome. That was a great advice. So I guess we can change the topic a little more to like the topic of this meeting. So some would say we are living in a VUCA world, and for those who don't know this abbreviation, it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I think it's true. Like in today's world, like in business, in cultures, and everything, like everything is changing with like a very great speed. So in this world, Audrey, how would you, to go to the title, how would you embrace this ambiguity? How would you embrace this uncertainty?
Well, if you've read the book Atomic Habit, it's essentially like wiring your brain in a certain way so that you react a certain way that you want after you get some signal, right? For me, I have to say that by now I'm so prepared to something that would change. Like I never feel like something will stay the same to even a little bit. It's like if you already embrace for impact, and if you can maneuver your behavior in terms of not relating change to stress, but relating change to something more positive, something more fun, something that would hype you up, more thrill, and something that would make you excited, and relate that to the positive side of change, then you can start having the positive relationship with changing, or like with the fast-paced world, with uncertainty, with complexity, with all of the ambiguity that we're maneuvering, right? Yeah. And that positive relationship, first of all, on the first layer, help you filter out the stress that a lot of people would relate it to. And that's a good part. You have more energy reserve to see what's next and what counteract that I want to throw out there to kind of like fight with the change, or maybe stick with the change, whatever reaction you want with the change or with the ambiguity. And then it's about controllable risk, right? You kind of think about all of the exposure of risk that you could possibly get, and try to measure it and try to control it. So, for example, in a very ambiguous time, you probably could lay out some path or like some reaction you relate to that risk, and then to that change, and then you kind of like think about the risk that comes with that change, and start to think about how you tackle this, or how you outsource that risk even. And then for the best part, I feel like it's more about, again, the safety net, the support system. Well, what if the change impact me so much that I probably would crash, right? But again, if you have that support system, and if you maneuver the risk enough, you would have built yourself a safety net. And that's like, for example, you would have saved enough money for your business, so you have cash on hand to tackle with that risk, right? That's also something that a safety net comes with. You always are prepared for something, for the known unknown, right? We can't prepare for the unknown, but at least to the extent of known unknown, you have the resource to tackle it. And if this is a habit that you build for your behavior and for your business, or for the organization that you're leading, then you know that you'll always be prepared 2 or 3 steps ahead when the industry as a whole embrace that change.
That was really, really great. Like, just to repeat what you said, the first one was to try to relate the change to something positive, and just
Yes.
and the other one was to prepare at least for a known unknown, right? That was a
Yeah.
great point, and
And
thank
I
you
feel
for
like
that.
the first one is, it's not also, it's not about yourself, right? We're all here to become a leader. It's also about the people beside you. You can do something to help them relate to change in a positive way, so that they're not hesitant to, you know, to stay in their comfort zone, or like when change hit, they don't just freak out. They kind of have the positive relationship with change too. And it'll be an easier way for the organization to, okay, to like be resilient and stand up, and then face the change, and you know, start over again, the new challenge.
Awesome. So I guess this would be my last question before Q&A, and it's about crucial experiences that you had in this ambiguous world. Like it could be when you like arrived in the US. It could be, I don't know, when you were in China, or even you were in like Taiwan. What was like, or yeah, what were like the experiences that that like transformed you to a new Audrey?
Well, that's a hard question. That's a really good one. For me, I mean, we in our lives, we certainly face a lot of challenges, right? For me, because of like the difference in time in my brain, the one is the crucible experience I have is the one that I recently just faced within my stay in the US, which is my identity, and what social impact I can be able to contribute relating to my identity. And I think it's so much about, because that's what we're discussing about in the US right now, a lot about diversity, about your identity, and the social impact and equity and equality. And for me, the hard part is I wasn't exposed to this part. Like in Taiwan, we don't discuss about this at all. In Taiwan, we also don't think about how we can support with our own strength to support the society and support people who are similar to us, and help them move, you know, have the upward mobility, right? So this is something that I start learning from scratch in the US. First of all, who am I? And second of all, like what kind of suppression or systemic damage there are in the world for different ethnicity, different race, and different gender, you know, different identity, to really see what they are, so that I can be part of the conversation of like making this world or this society a better place for all of us, right? And that alone is a very hard part, because I sort of cannot identify myself with a lot of ongoing discussion, being like an international student. Like well, it probably is a more personal issue, but a personal problem. But like, for example, there's no organization to help international students to stand up more, compared to people who are helping BIPOC to like fight for their own voices, right? But they're like, they are there and they need help. And so for me, it's like a hardship in terms of who I am and what I can contribute, so we can make this platform a more like a even playing field, so that everyone, every youth, every baby in the future, they can also stand from this point and very equally, and get their education without getting the debt, right? And be treated equally without considering their gender or their race or where they come from, right? And that's kind of like the thing I was learning that kind of brought me a hard time. But I'm glad I learned that in the US. And I also want to, you know, bring more awareness into countries like Taiwan, where race is never too much of an issue because we are not as diverse. And I think that's a problem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I think we can open up to Q&As. And okay, so the first question is Ala. Ala, you can unmute yourself, I guess, and ask your question.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Audrey.
Hi, Ala.
Yes, nice to
Thank
meet you.
you.
That was a great experience for me to hear you. Actually, I have two questions from you. One is that you just mentioned Taiwan is not that diverse, and so it's just the matter of the majority voice or those kind of stuff. So I suppose as it is in Iran, community and those kind of concepts is just something theoretical, and not much people have known about it or do something about it, or actually it's not something practical to do because, or it's very hard. I just wanted to know how you try to build that kind of community for the equality, and that be diverse and everyone can have the kind of same supports for their career path, and to just start and build on their skills and just go further. This is the first question that I have from you.
Okay, can I answer that first? Because I'm afraid I would lose. Yeah, so I feel like it's a really hard question, and it's a big question to answer, right? Because there are different scales of impact we can introduce to our home base. And the smallest being just talk about this with your friends at home and let them like introduce the topic, make them feel interested, or at least bring their awareness there so they can build something from there onward. The big one being, maybe leading an organization that really impacts every household in terms of education, in terms of resource support, in terms of like connecting people from abroad. I mean, there are so many things we can do, but we're so limited to. Is what I was, concluding as well. I mean, from our standpoint, if, for example, I'm devoting my time more towards building my career, not at home in the US, then my time is limited and my impact would be limited back home, right? So for me, I'm just doing the very much basic. I'm talking about, gender identity with my parents, with my friends back home when we FaceTime. They might not relate as much, but I think they can definitely see the enthusiasm within me. And I feel like that alone could make them more aware of the ongoing issue in the world. And then, like when facing people or students younger than me, whenever I share my experience with like college students or high school students back home, that's also what I bring up as well. So I can make them aware of that and like remind them to, watch global news, make global friends from all of the amazing apps that they're using. And even in the metaverse, right, in the future, what their future would look like is going to be mind-blowing for us to really even imagine. They can just like hop on a headset and just travel the world. I mean, that's very practical for them, right? The life they're living. So like, especially the youth and the next generation, where we want to prep them and what we want them to also kind of know is very critical in terms of them like exploring to more options. And that's that movement of like impacting someone who's younger than us pay more dividend than you trying to impact the older generation and the current society that's probably already reluctant to even discuss about the issue. Yeah, but again, there are a lot of things we can do. I think we need another session about this conversation about bringing change and introducing what's happening around the world to our home base. Yeah, I hope that helped. And yeah.
Yes, thank you. And about the ambiguity and the ambiguous atmosphere or the situation that after we just kind of being a mature person, we are going to face more and more. How is the mindset to be helpful to face that kind of reality, or how can we just be more adjusted, flexible, and to just live based on our values and still accept those kind of things that we cannot change, and just know the difference between the ones that we can change and those that we cannot. I mean, there are lots of problems in the world, and not every issue can be tackled by same solving methods, and some of them are too complex for us to just tackle them just in one trial or those kind of way of thinking. Or this is that problem, or maybe the kind of opportunity that we have to face in just kind of ambiguous situations of our lives. So how can we be the most, I don't know, effective one in those kind of situations?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, it's again like I am just thrilled about change. I feel excited when something's different, and like when I was because again I was trying to know myself more and also like learn about why I was built, like why I think this way, because a lot of my friends, they're more hesitant or they're more conservative towards change. And then that's when I reached the conclusion of, oh, I really have a really positive association with change, and that makes me excited, right? The positivity is there in ambiguity for me, because I feel like that opens up my opportunity, that opens up certain different paths that I've never thought about, and I'm excited to explore them. And I think the difference between having the positive and having the negative is really about the energy, right? If change comes, eventually, if you don't go along with the change or the ambiguity, you just get eliminated. So everyone essentially have to go through that challenge. But the difference between the positive and the negative is if you spend your time being excited and having more energy, or if you spend the time being worried and drain yourself down, right? There's actually practically no difference, because you have to face the change anyways. So then I found out, okay, maybe my thinking is a better one, or I wouldn't judge, but I would say a one that's very suitable for me, where I can see the difference in just like the first tier of facing change. And so, yeah, that's where I stand right now. And I think it's good. And I think that's something that would benefit us. It's sort of like a characteristic or personality that you can have that could like, help yourself to stand further ahead in the marathon line, so that you can, have the first couple miles to run at ease, in a metaphor speaking. The second one is about, I think, like value, like your personal value or like the community value, and really, I guess, like absorbing and then draining off what you don't want, right? But conserving the core value you want to keep. And that process, it's a lot about judgment and filtering and like critical reasoning and like the sense of right and wrong. And it's blurred out because we're standing in a place where information is so abundant and like so rich, and where everyone essentially can start their own podcast and talk about their bad experience. Not to judge, but like maybe their story isn't the one story that we want to follow, but they can start their podcast. Or maybe the information they're spreading towards their families, they're not accurate, they're not the facts, they're biased, but they can also spread the information. So it's coming back to like the judgment of your filter system, where you can judge between right and wrong, maybe not that black and white, but also like between what's better, what's not, what's for me, what's actually should be eliminated, but what's suitable for others, but not for me. So there are different gauges, and that's really hard, especially when we have to filter information every day, if we're connected with electronic device, right? Like when we open up our phone, the first page of, I don't know, Google or like your Instagram, whatever social media account, they're pushing you information that you have to filter every day. So I think that's a lot about training yourself into making that filter system solid and effective, and to really have the time on the regular basis to deeply search yourself and listen to your voices and know who you are with your friends, with your families as well. Know who you are where you're standing on, like in the world, and know where you want to go, and have that filter of judgment built very solidly, so that you can keep that system running when there's so many different informations attacking you and grab your attention. I don't know if that's like a good way to, or understandable way to answer this question, but I mean, it's really, really hard nowadays. in terms of ambiguity, in terms of like having a sense of good judgment, a complex judgment, even like on bigger issues, right? And I would say though, it's also a good point we have to keep in mind that it's a progress. It's not a status where you can hit and you just stay there. It's like you're constantly evolving yourself as well. So
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you for asking that. And thank you for all of your reactions. I love seeing those. I feel like I'm like interacting with someone. So that's great.
Nice to hear that from you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ala. And I think we have time for one more question. If anyone wants to raise their hand or put it in the chat. And in the meantime, I can say like there's another event for Bennu. I think it would be sometime in September, which is about what we briefly talked today.
September
Sorry, what?
10th.
September 10th.
Yeah, on Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, so it would be in 2 weeks almost, and it would be about what we talked briefly today, VUCA word, and what does it mean. And there would be a guest named, if I don't mispronounce it, Waltraud Glaser.
Waltraud Glaser, yeah.
Glaser, yeah. So, yeah, I think Ali has a question. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ali.
Hi, Audrey. Thanks for your talk. I did really connect with some of your hints. But I have a question. Actually, I'm in my 20s, and the thing that I think about is that I guess change is good, and the change of the zone you are, the place you live, the experience. Even, for example, you're working in something and want to try something else, which is out of your comfort zone. But the thing that I'm thinking about recently, because I had some experiences in the past, is that I guess there is some, how to say it, there, I think we should be a little careful about about the time that we put ourselves in the situations that are challenging for us, and not all the time is good. I think that you should hit some milestones first before putting yourself in an uncomfortable zone. So I wanted, but I have not made my mind about it, so I wanted to know your idea.
Sure. I think that links back to the controllable risk that we're talking about. I guess the example I collected from a lot of the leaders and entrepreneurs that are very successful nowadays is when they started their business, right? They did not quit their full-time job because they still need to support yourself. And then when they start, building their business, it's all about like, it's very harsh. It's all about diligence. It's all about like working at night, working the weekends, so that they can also still have the income of their regular job before they really transit into working fully for their business when it's sustainable, right? And that's the way they control their risk. They don't just one day have this brand idea and know how to do it and just quit their job, because what about 6 months from now if you fail from your new business, and that happens more often than the business success, right? What happens then? Like, you always have to think 2, 3, 4 months ahead, but also like 2, 3 years ahead, when you're making the decision, and also like being very practical about where you stand, because not everyone has that resource to be able to get to where you want to get in just 10 steps, right? Sometimes you have to take a detour to really get where you are, because of like because of where you are right now. So linking back to like the controllable risk and support system, like maybe share the idea with your friends and families and mentors and see what they say. they might suggest, they might give you some advice about you facing that change and what the next step should be. And please make that a conversation as well. So it's interactive and it's a long, complex, but also practical discussion, and not just a yes and no. I think you should do that, right? So that you can get more nuance when you're making the decision, and you can think more thoroughly about what's surrounding that decision. Yeah, and really, I think when you are trying to make a really different, huge step, you have to prepare it for longer. Like, again, it's like 70% about planning, 30% about execution. And when you're at planning stage, it's about talking with your mentors, your friends, and also doing some research about your next step. And if you take it, what kind of step you take, what's going to lead you to. And so you have that plan preparation, you have less unknown risk, and then you can, like, step by step get there. Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Thank
hope
you,
that
Ali.
helped. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I believe this would be our last question. It's from Fatima. She's asking if we have limited supporting community, what we should do to expand it.
I'd say, to be honest, go virtual. Going virtual is a huge way to reach out. Your net is no longer limited to your geologic location, and the fact that you're here means that the language barrier is not a factor for you anymore. So you can put yourself out there, right? Even if you only know one language, through virtual you get to hit a lot of different people in different areas and different life stages. And that's like one big constraint that we eliminate because of technology. And I think that's amazing. But maybe also try to, the fun part, try to reach out more in terms of different activities, right? If you I don't know, join a club, a reading club, a sports team, you make more friends, and then you get to know their friends. That's also one way to reach out. It's like growing roots like a tree, right? You kind of want to go everywhere and explore, but also virtual, and just, but again, it's back to your own effort, really. Like, nowadays we can't say that anyone's limiting us anymore. If we have internet access, if we have sense of security, and if we get to support ourselves, then that's when we're at a good stage, and we can try to reach out more through the resource we have.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. Okay, so I think we are almost at 1 hour. I want to thank Audrey again for joining us today, and I want to thank the new community for providing this platform. Yeah, honestly, you were like the first person who came to my mind when Mama asked me if I know someone. So thank you for sharing your experiences.
Well, thank you for joining. And I also want to thank Bennu. I feel like it's actually something that we lack in Taiwan as well, like bringing people together, being people who are trying to do something together in like just this very casual session where people can just hop out and chat. This is amazing, actually. So.
Great, and I want to thank you again, Audrey. And in fact, based on the things you shared with us, we are trying to build a community at Bennu Community, some kind of support system to share experience and knowledge and try to find like-minded people, run some events like this, great contents, and also we have some activities like Hey Buddy, which is some kind of buddy matchmaking for experience and knowledge sharing and stuff like that. And also we have some ideas to build some kind of circles to share our challenges with other people, especially as a digital nomad, as I told you already. And hope you and your friends and your network also join us to share more experiences as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. It was great.